Let the ceremony start. Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you for coming. I am humble that you're here with us tonight. No matter where you're from, no matter your accent, listen to mine, no matter your color of your skin, no matter your beliefs, we are united under one common goal. We are free human beings. We are free Americans. And also we respect each other. That's the bottom line. This is the religion of freedom. That's what we do. So welcome to the temple. Welcome to the Social Contact Club. My name is Luca Zanna, and I'm humble. I would like to call myself your brother, from a different father, I'm sure, and mother. But the point here, we are really at this point of the story. That's it. It's us. If you look around, the enemy has surrounded us. And we're here as brothers and sisters, united under the principle expressed from our founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence, in the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. That's why we're here. But believe it or not, this is not just a political idea. For me, it is truly a religious belief. Because after all, what is religion? The First Amendment doesn't specify government, shall not legislate what is your religion. It's your belief. All we ask when you come here in our temple, respect each other. We don't judge. We don't preach. We have people among us, Christians, we have Jews, we have atheists. That's fine. I'm not here to take care of your soul. I'm here because I would like to make a stand and send an example to all the tyrants out there that we are free Americans and we stand for this republic. That's why we're here. That's the bottom line. This is our religion. So now, exactly tonight, why we're here. We have in this club one purpose.
Luca?
Yes.
The sound is not very good.
Okay, give me
This
another
is a
mic.
better mic.
Here we go. Something.
You sure it's not the accent?
Probably is the
That
Hello. Is it better? Nice. Thank you. Even more one minute. So the bottom line is this one. This is just kind of was a dream. Years ago, about 8 years ago, I came out with this vision of a religion of freedom. And people used to laugh at me. I remember the late former owner of radio station of K-Talks. He was a friend, by the way, even from different ideals. But Dave Hayes said, "What is this garbage?" He brought me on the show. And I said, "You know what? This religion of freedom is crazy. But guess what? You're crazy enough. Be on the show for 5 years." I said, "But people cannot even understand me when I talk." But that's okay. You're fine. So anyway, now I said, this is more than just a religion. This is also the way we're going to take our country back. This is a belief. If you think about freedom, it is not an abstract concept. It's something that we use every day and we can somehow exercise every day. No matter if you are a legislator, of course, you have a big responsibility. You represent many people. No matter if you are county, city level, state level, federal level, you still have to uphold the principle that our founding fathers fought and died for, and they left us as a gift. The good thing about this nation, and I'm telling you because I wasn't born here, we don't have to fight for anything. They fought for us. They died. They gave their properties. They gave their limbs. This is like, you can go into a history book. When I was 11 years old, I stumbled when I was in boarding school on the book of American history. I was always punished. And I said, let me study a little bit. Maybe I learned something here. And I started to be fascinated about American history, especially the American Revolution. And you can put it down in few chapters, but there is a lot of tears. There are a lot of tears, a lot of blood, a lot of drama. Think about sons, dads, fathers, and brothers, wives. People really had to suffer for what we have today. And what really makes me mad a little bit, when I see that we don't even try to stop it. We don't have to fight. We have just to say, stop robbing me from my rights. Stop killing this republic. We have our natural rights to stand up. And you can do it in every way you wish. You can become a legislator. You can speak up. You can also start your own church like this one. I don't want to be the only one, the crazy one. I want more crazy people out there. So anyway, this is truly a temple of freedom. I'm also an ordained minister, by the way. I also can celebrate weddings. And in this place, just to let you know, we truly have a membership club form. And according to the Supreme Court ruling a couple months ago, Chicago against, the poor priests out there that they're trying to stay open. Meanwhile, you can go to Walmart and get sick, technically, but you can go to your church. Anyway, the Supreme Court at least did one thing right. The religious clubs cannot be shut down. Now, you're over 18, you have free will. If you believe that this virus is so serious and you gotta get, your NBC mask, go ahead, put it. I don't believe that, this is my humble opinion, you don't need to believe like me. I don't believe that 99 cents, piece of cloth from China is gonna stop anything but maybe some flies. That's it, and we leave it like that. So, but that's not the point. The point here, we are here, our free will. We have a basic concept here. We exercise our principle, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We are not just here to preach. We don't preach. We exercise our rights. We have fun, we have music, we play cards. The good thing about it, you see, we don't sell you anything. You can bring your own drinks. Because I don't want to go back to Phoenix or to the county. Please give me the health license or give me the health department or give me something, please, master. Screw that. Bring your own drinks, bring your own coffee. So you pay less, and I don't need to let anyone through that door unless I like their face. Okay? As simple as that. This is home. This is my extended living room. So much that I have months of my decor. This is from one of my homes. Okay? Anyway, tonight we have, now enough about me. I want you to know what's going on here. This is not just a crazy place with somebody dressed like a clown. I'm truly an ordained minister. And I have my first wedding in April. All right, now, tonight we're going to have a very important event. We are not here to just, how things are so bad. We know things are bad. I don't want to go into detail. They will tell you better than me. I want to find solutions. I want to find how we can take our country back, starting from our cities, from our counties, and from our state. We have a lot of power in these dimensions. And we have a man tonight that a few years ago, not that long ago, this is not like 200 years ago, this is like a recent history. Just a common man, an elected sheriff from a little county in Arizona, who stood up against the Goliath and set an example that is fresh in American history and also in American legislation. The Supreme Court ruled something very important. They will tell you better. And why I want to hear these things over and over, because it's our job, spreading the gospel, in this case, the gospel of freedom, educating our law enforcement. Doesn't need to be the top sheriff, can be even just a regular policeman out there. He's just doing his job. Guess what? You took an oath. That's your job, first of all, is this. This is your job. Every one of you guys, I know a lot of veterans here. We have a lot of veterans among our members, but I'm very proud of you. I'm very thankful, okay? Thank you. Thank you. This oath never expires. It's always there. So you always try to fulfill in every way you can. So the bottom line is that's why we're here. We want to find solutions. And educating people and public officials, I like to call it public servants, with respect, but they are technically working for us. That's the most important job we can do as citizens. Nobody's going to do it for us. Washington is gone, guys. You know that. I don't need to remind you what you already know better than me here. But we can make this Molly County a better place to live. I tell you, I'm proud to live in Molly County. I could afford to live anywhere I want. I've been in Miami like a month ago. I said, get me out of here. I mean, I like it for business, don't get me wrong, but it's another world. I know we have little things to work on, things sometimes are not perfect. We don't need to agree on everything. I have people with you, sometimes we had a little problem a few years ago. We were respectfully. It's called debating. It's called freedom of speech. But we are now united because the real enemy is in front of us, not between us. That's what I'm trying to say. So my goal tonight is to introduce you great people, men and women. We're standing together, first of all, in our front line, in our legislation, setting the example to uphold this Constitution. We're going to have, of course, our State Senator, Sonny Borrelli. Please, an applause. Okay. Then we have our Arizona representative, of course, Leo Biasucci. Thank you, Leo. Then we have a great county supervisor that I'm very proud to know, even when she hated me many years ago. I'm kidding about that. She never hated. She's a great lady. But we are different sometimes. But guess what? We are great people. Come on, get up. Give the Andrews. Thank you, lady. And then we have the man who set the example for us. And this is not like you go in front of the Supreme Court, by accident. By the way, I am the son of David Rockefeller. No problem with lawyers. This guy is a working man. Was a working man. Is a working man. He had family, responsibilities. And when he had to put his wealth, his safety, everything together on the line, it wasn't doing for him. He is a sheriff. He was a sheriff at the time. He didn't have to worry about the federal law that infringed on our rights. He had guns. He was exempt. He risked everything he had. The county didn't give him a dime to try to stop this tyranny. And it's like when you play poker. I don't play cards. But you know what? You can get burned. When you lose, you lose. He did a decision with his wife. They did it. And that's why it's so important. I would like to show what he did, because his sacrifice wasn't just something that we have in some history book. It must be used every day we can, at every level we can, city, county, no matter what. All right, that's enough for me. I would like to shut up. I would like to remind you one thing. Tonight we have a lot of our members, and I really encourage you and really appreciate your support. As you know, we don't sell anything, but your membership is vital to keep this club and this temple alive. Of course, one of my companies also owns the building, so I'm kind of, privileged tenant. I still gotta pay the rent, okay? So in case you want to become a member tonight after you enjoy, you're more than welcome to go to British. She can help you out. Meanwhile, I would like to start now tonight, first of all, with our State Senator, Sonny Borrelli, that he can tell us pretty much, he's been working very hard in Phoenix. He's doing a lot of things that I want from his mouth to tell us. So, hey, I'm not going to speak for you. You're going to tell us what you tell. And there's a lot of great job. I'm very proud of you, Sonny. Thank you very much for coming, okay? In applause, please.
Yeah, last time I was on stage, it was karaoke. 10 minutes, that's it? Are you kidding? They have a lot of stuff.
Go ahead, do whatever you do.
Bridget, you'll help translate. Yeah, okay. Well, let me see. Where do we start? I think probably the biggest elephant in the room is about the election integrity investigation that we're doing, right? Is that what you want to hear? Yeah. All right, we can go through boring tax stuff and that, okay, good. Well, it starts back right after the November election. I'm going to tell you, there's three people on I call it the trident. It's usually the tip of the spear, but it's a trident. There's 3 points on that trident. Leo Biasucci, Mark Fitcham, and myself. After the November election, we said, this is not right, something's wrong here. We need to get to the bottom of this. We need to start doing some research. So Mark Fitcham leading the way over in the House. Leo had not yet became officially the majority whip in the House. So he kind of hang back a little bit and just kind of help, try to rally some people around what we need to try to do. And I was trying to get a hearing over in the House of Representatives for election integrity and bringing Rudy Giuliani out and finding out what we can do to try to have a hearing like that in the House. Speaker of the House wouldn't have anything to do with it. Because of COVID, it actually worked out better because we did it downtown Phoenix. Because of COVID, it worked out better downtown Phoenix because we could have a bigger venue and we could have massive exposure, and that's what we got. And it was Leo that helped put this together, and Mark Fitcham leading the way, and of course me, part of that, getting the Senate members on the panel and kind of running interference and getting some more data, trying to get the logistics together. Well, this is what we already saw what happened on November 30th. It worked out great because that lit the fire on the grass fire and it spread, which helped me get a Senate hearing, an official Senate hearing, and push the president of the Senate to have that. We tried to do it with a joint hearing, but because we were out of session, we couldn't make a special hearing. So we just had a Senate hearing, and it was done in the Judiciary Committee. Eddie Farnsworth It was the committee chairman, so it worked out perfectly. Now, the funny thing about that was, it was all done via Zoom, because we couldn't do it at the House, or excuse me, in the Senate building. So we had it all done via Zoom, which worked out great, because I was in a condo that I have to rent in Phoenix, and I'm on the laptop, my government laptop in the kitchen. And when I asked, of course, I had certain members ask certain questions to the county supervisors, it kind of led them down my trail. So when I asked the supervisors and the election director about things being hooked up to the internet, is Dominion hooked up to the internet? And they said, no, there's no way, nothing's hooked up to the internet. I said, okay, so how do we know that when somebody's taking the thumb drive out of the little count machine and they're doing an upload in the main machine, how do we know that they didn't palm one of those little thumb drives? Oh, no, we have that tracked, they're all serial numbered, and we were tracking that, the chain of custody. I'm like, okay, so, but how do we know somebody didn't palm that? I mean, how do we know? Well, we have security cameras all through the place. Oh, great, that's good, you have security cameras. So let me ask you, do you have security cameras in the office space that you're providing for the Dominion software employees, vendors? Of course, silence. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, I know one of the county supervisors during one of the supervisor meetings said that the county is providing county space, taxpayer space for the Dominion vendors in a county building. So do you have video cameras, security cameras in those office spaces? Well, no. Well, here's my problem. How do we know that they didn't take one of those little thumb drives and do something in their laptop and monkey around and put it in cyberspace and votes get switched around? Because that's in the accusations. Oh, well, that didn't happen. Well, how do you know that? Well, because there's no internet in there. There's no internet in the entire building. Oh, really? See, I have a problem with that too, because there's only 2 wires on the laptop that I'm using, and it's a power cord and the mouse. I'm old school. I got to use the old mouse. I can't use the thing on it. But guess what? We're communicating right now via Wi-Fi, and we know you have Wi-Fi in the building. Oh my God, dead silence. I watched the committee chair, Eddie Farner, just kind of rock back in his chair and grin, fold his arms, because then he was able to, do the coup de grace and notify them that we were going to be issuing a subpoena with the permission of the president of the Senate to subpoena all the voting records, all the ballots, the images of the ballots, access to the Dominion machines, all the data, and we're going to be hitting them with a subpoena. Now, the funny thing about it was, the media, as soon as we did that, the supervisors were all shocked and appalled that we would do that to them. Well, that's a bunch of horse pucky. That'd be nice here. This is a temple of freedom. Anyway, but see, the supervisors knew 3 days in advance that those subpoenas were on the table. So automatically, right off the bat, the supervisors started lying to the public, lying to us, and then next thing you know, they challenge our subpoenas in court. We're in court, we'll go back and forth battling with them, and then of course they kept moving the goalposts, this and that. This is where we are right now. Last week or a week ago, the judge ruled that our subpoenas are legal and they are enforceable, and that the supervisors should be compliant. Now the game started playing this Monday. They decided they were going to load all 17 ballots, 1,400 boxes of ballots and 17 pallets, and they were going to just deliver it to us and drop it on the doorstep of the Senate, and along with the Dominion machines, which is breaking the chain of custody. And the sheriff will understand that, and he actually can explain more if it needs to. But they were literally breaking the chain of custody, because technically they were already breaking the chain of custody anyway, because on the 30th of November, when the election is certified and canvassed, all that stuff is supposed to be signed over to the county treasurer to be held in trust, because he's the custodian of the records, and he's supposed to be able to lock everything up and preserve that evidence. The supervisors violated that. Now, I don't know if that's a class 2 misdemeanor times 2.1 million, that's the ballots, or is it 1,400 boxes of a class 2 misdemeanor. So I don't know, that's something I guess the lawyers will have to figure out. However, I'm building a nice little folder for evidence that if need be, when the time comes, I'm gonna hand right over to the Attorney General's office because I want some people freaking perp walked. Normally I shouldn't say that kind of stuff. You know, we are supposed to have some kind of decorum with our other elected officials. But 4 out of those 5 of those county supervisors are Republicans, and I don't care. If you're corrupt, you go into flipping jail. That's what you belong. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get my blood up a little bit here, but Lucas started it when he reminded me about my oath that I took 35 years ago when I joined the Marines. There is no expiration date on that oath. Here's the one key thing that I'm really concerned with about this audit, is the Dominion devices. If it's hooked up to the internet, that's a federal crime. It's not supposed to be hooked up to the internet. And if that stuff went into cyberspace and went all over the world, that's a national security issue. Now we're talking treason. And I want people against a wall on that one. However, we're not a mob. We wanted to go through the legal process. But that's treason. Now we got 5 states that possibly doing that. If we find that this election was a complete fraud, which I'm convinced of, that this was hooked to the internet, and all we can do legally, I believe, under the legislature, because the way the Constitution is written, the only real authority is on the federal election, the electors. Our only choices would be if obviously we can't decide who won the election because it was a complete fraud, all we can do is recall the electors from Biden. If we can figure it out, then we can say, okay, Donald Trump won, landslide, whatever. We'll award the electors to President Trump. Now, that doesn't change the overall numbers on the Electoral College. But if the other states get a backbone and some testicular fortitude, I'm learning, I'm getting better. And if they start doing the same thing like Georgia, like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and by the way, Leo and I were at CPAC last weekend, and we met with people, and all these legislators are going, wow, we're watching Arizona. What are you guys doing? Oh, well, what you're witnessing is a backbone. So maybe you should do the same thing. Because the legislature has so much power that people forget about. They keep always thinking that the federal government has more power than the states. And I know that's exactly what Sheriff Mack is going to remind everybody of, and it's going to tell everybody. And Leo's working on something right now that's literally going to make the Dems go apoplectic when I have to argue his bill in the Senate, because that's going to be a lot of fun. But I'll let Leo go on now, and then of course I want to full bounce off of that when you kind of get done with that. But the state legislatures have so much power that they've surrendered for years. Because complacency kills, and that's exactly what's happening in this country. Complacency is killing this country. People need to get a backbone, read the Constitution, what it means, understand the intent that it was the states that gave government. On the electors, the presidential electors. Well, I argued this one with our attorneys and other members of the Senate, which I was really shocked because they a lot of them have these fancy college degrees. And I'm just a knuckle-dragging Neanderthal jarhead with a GED, but I know how to read. And this is what the Constitution says. And as far as I'm concerned, we can be judge and jury on the electors for the presidential election, because that's what the Constitution says. The federal government didn't give that right to the states. That was a right that the states retained when they ratified the Constitution. Anyway, I'm open for comments or questions. Well, no comments, just questions. No questions. Yes, sir.
The thing that gets passed around all the time is if the Board of Supervisors of Maricopa County said that everything was fine with the election, why do they care if we look at anything they have?
Exactly. If you got nothing to hide, we said it.
What do they say about that?
Well, they don't say anything. They tap dance around and call us, oh, this is the big lie, this and that. I'm like, Goebbels said that during, the 30s, called out the big lie. Here's the thing. If your election is perfect, let us help you prove it.
Yeah.
There's two things that we have to do. It's one or the other. Either the election was okay and it was not corrupted. Great, we did our job, we proved it, we can restore election integrity and try to instill confidence in our election. If it's a fraud, we need to expose that too, because we have to fix it. We have to fix it through legislation that we're trying to do now. but only prospectively. This is one of the reasons, the key thing of why we're doing this, and we're doing this as an investigation, not just like an audit of a CFO. This needs to be done just like any criminal investigation. Of course, I want to say this is a capital crime investigation. We're going to be investigating physical evidence and forensic evidence on the cyber stuff, because the cyber warfare stuff scares the living hell out of me. Yes, sir.
This gentleman was before me, but I'll go after him.
Yes, Danny.
Yeah, my biggest thing is the procedures were changed. You, as a member of the Senate, and Leo, as a member of the House, are supposed to establish the rules on how the election is supposed to be run.
Right.
How does a judge or the Secretary of State or anybody else change that on all these mail-in ballots?
Good question.
Well, those are the other states, but the only thing that they did here in Arizona was the Secretary of State convinced, and we went to court on this one and we lost, that was extending the registration date. But we do have, we do have ID, voter ID. We outlaw ballot harvesting, which, by the way, has been challenged over the years. The lower courts upheld our law. Then it went to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circus, kicked it out, and now it's up to the Supreme Court, where the state Arizona Attorney General Brnovich is actually arguing that in the Supreme Court. But it's amazing how, the Democrats are always, when we try to fix something, they call it voter suppression. But all we're doing is just trying to make sure that it's done correctly, that elections are not stolen, and that the integrity maintained, because we want honest and fair elections. They don't want honest and fair elections. They don't. We have to have voter ID. They come up with all kinds of crazy stuff. They go out on ballot harvest, and they say, but there's no election fraud. That doesn't go on. Wait a minute. They had a woman indicted down in Yuma for ballot harvesting. Oh, that's just an isolated incident. Oh, okay. Well, the precinct of Guadalupe in Phoenix, they have 1,300 registered voters, but 1,700 people voted. Oh, but that's just an anomaly. Yes, sir.
Senator Browder, as far as the audit's concerned, do you care to comment on the whole swirling that's going around Mr. Pulitzer?
Yes. I saw his video about his equipment 2 months ago, and I said, wow, this is a great thing. If this guy's product can do this, it would be so time saving, and we would not have to go through every physical ballot. Because when I watch that video, what his product does, it uses the digital copies of the ballot, so he can scan those and figure out if the ballot's been folded. Let me finish. He can determine off the digital copy, as he runs it through his machine, that it can determine if it's been folded, if it's a legitimate bubbled in, or somebody Xerox copied bubbled in. And I was like, wow, that's great. Man, we need to get a hold of this. Okay. Well, when we start digging into this, unfortunately, he hasn't done an audit anywhere. He hasn't used that in any official capacity. So we're like, okay, well, let's hold off on it. But maybe let's stop trash it. Let's put it on the shelf. Let's keep taking another look at it. Well, now he seems to be changing the narrative that he needs access to all 2.1 million ballots, and only his system can scan them all through and this and that. And he's creating so much headache on us that, look, everybody wants to know who we're going to use for the audit. It's not an audit. It's just an investigation. Part of an investigation is an audit.
Right.
Everybody always wants to know who's on the team. Well, is it right for us to give up the names of SEAL Team 6? Absolutely not. The people don't have a right to know everything. There's certain operational security things that we have to worry about. We need to make sure that we maintain the integrity of the investigation, that is done right with the right professionals, from everything from the paper ballot to the forensic evidence that's on the Dominion system, if it's the internet, the servers, the routers that's inside that building. So I'm not saying who's involved, who's not involved, but hey, I still want to look at his stuff, because if he's got something that's a good mousetrap, you know what? I'm out to hunt rats. And if that's a rat trap, I want it. So,
well, the other thing he's saying is that there's a 6-month time frame.
Okay.
The irregular ballots can be
excellent point. Thank you. The law says for federal elections, they have to be maintained in Arizona for 22 months. 22 months. Okay. State and county elections, 6 months, the ballots can be destroyed. But if I don't remember right, but when I voted on the November 30th election, or the general election, when I voted for Donald Trump, there was a hold down ticket. So you can't just cut up a ballot and cut half of it off. It's just destruction of public property. So that is being swirled around, and we're like, that makes absolutely no sense, because we don't have separated ballots unless it's just strictly a federal ballot only, and it only has the federal elections on there, not anything statewide, state down. We would have the president, Senate, and Congress. That's it.
Senator, let me say something. One second.
Pardon?
Our ballots aren't separated like that.
No, it's all on. I remember even this backside. There's two sides of that ballot, so they can't be destroyed.
Let me say.
Yeah.
Guys, I know you have more questions for him.
Yeah.
And I know Senator Borelli, you're gonna hang out a little bit with us. Please, he's gonna give you all the help for the answer, okay? I just wanna keep the track, because we have also other guests. Of course, Sheriff Mack came from out of town. I don't wanna go back home tonight too late, okay? So I'm sorry for that. But you got some advertisement to do?
Well, I'm kind of disappointed. You got Perry. I was waiting for
She got some Pellegrino, look.
The Pellegrino.
Ah, we gave it to her. I knew you were gonna say that. Anyway, thank you, Senator Borelli. Applause, please. Thank you. Like I said, I apologize if I had to cut a little bit short. We have a kind of a, route to fill, but he's gonna be here for you guys. That's why he came. He drove all the way from Havasu, so he will help you with questions, okay? I'm sorry about that. Now, here we go. State Representative Leo Biasucci. That's, I can spell that out right. That's an accent I can keep right. Leo Biasucci.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you, everybody. Sonny touched on a lot of the election stuff, which I think is all extremely important. When you mentioned about the online, I'm going to touch on this really quickly. When we had that November 30th hearing, we had Colonel Waldron. He was an ex-colonel in the military, and all he did was he looked at the people who were hacking into the system. So he had himself and the white hackers. They call the white hackers who are the good guys. And they were literally watching on election night is all these countries were hacking in to our voting software. They're all hacking into Dominion. So we know it's true. And I even asked him, I stopped the hearing and I said, Colonel, I just want to make sure this is, under oath. If you were, under perjury, the possibility of perjury, are you telling me that people were hacking into these machines? Are you telling me this was connected to the internet? And he goes, absolutely 100%. 100%.
Wow.
That right there, he said, chills up and down my spine. I said, right there, I knew this election was stolen. Right now, the matter is, how do we find out? And everybody in here knows, right? When we knew something was wrong, like all of us, we weren't sure what was wrong. We didn't know what happened or what didn't happen, but we just said, look, let's look into the elections, just to look into it. And so when you had all this resistance happening, that alone is a problem, right? If they're saying like, oh no, you don't need to look at them, there's nothing to see here, that starts to say, wait a minute, this is bullshit, right? I mean, something's not right. And so I just want to really quickly ask you guys, do one more applause to Senator Borelli here, because he's been fighting on the Senate side. When other states gave up, we continued in Arizona. We never stopped. And you have, he mentioned Mark Fincham. He has been, they turned him over to the FBI and the DOJ. They're trying to press charges against Representative Fincham. The November or the January 6th, the Capitol riots, breaking into the Capitol, which was all BS. But we're fighting back. And that's what I want you guys all to know. I want to bring this up because Luca being from Italy, and my parents are born in Italy, born and raised there. And we went back a couple years ago and we met with the mayor of a small town out there, my dad's hometown. And I'm telling you this story because I want you to know why we cannot turn into a socialist country. I mean, you're all smart enough to know why not. But here's a perfect example. We met with the mayor and we started asking questions, and he looked at us and he goes, we're broke. As a country, we're broke. As a city, we're broke. We have no money. And he goes, and the reason is because when you have free healthcare, when you have free everything, right? Free education, free healthcare, everything's free. You pay 70% taxes, because what happens? Everybody leaves. All the businesses leave. All the corporations leave. All the work leaves. Everybody goes to the neighboring countries and they build their factories there. So now you have a country with a bunch of people who have a lot of education because everything's free, but they have nowhere to work. So they all leave Italy. They all go somewhere else. And now they have no money. And so that would kind of open our eyes. Senator Borelli was there as well. And we all know that we cannot turn socialist, right? And we all had these warnings when Biden was running, where he's going to take away our guns, right? He talked about that. I'm taking away your AR-15s. coming after your high-capacity magazines. Kamala Harris said the same thing. We're coming after your guns. What was that idiot in Texas or Warwick, right? Moron. That's anything over, whatever. And Biden said, "Oh, this guy is going to be in my cabinet. He's going to be running." So, as legislators, it's disheartening to see what happened in D.C. Right? Nobody is happy that administration is running this country. So our job at the state level is to protect the state, right? This is what we're doing now. And so I want to tell you about a couple bills that I'm running. They both passed the House this last week. One of them is HB 2111. It's called the Firearm Freedom Act. Second Amendment Firearm Freedom Act. And what it says is very simple. It says if the federal government changes anything to infringe on your Second Amendment, if Biden says I'm banning AR-15s, if he says I'm taking high-capacity magazines, making them illegal, this bill says you can go pound sand. Not happening here in Arizona. I mean, it's a very simple bill. It says we will not spend the money, we will not spend the law enforcement, our courts will not engage in anything that you try to do that infringes on our Second Amendment here in Arizona. I want to give applause to Hildy really quick, everybody. She started this months ago. She started this at the county level. And, we said we need to make this to the state level. Let's move it to the state. And it's funny, what we did is, so when I put the bill out, the feelers out, our legal team at the House was like, "Oh, you can't do this. This is against the Constitution. You can't do this." I said, "Really?" So why is that? And you'll get a lot of young guys that are at the House and Senate, and it's just the language is not right. And I said, "Okay, I have an idea." So we went to Jerry Brown. You guys remember good old Jerry Brown, California? In 2017, they came up with their sanctuary city bill, right? So they said ICE cannot come in here and start arresting illegals. So they passed the bill. Jerry Brown signed it, and then it was challenged in court, and the court upheld it. So I said, okay, so if that got upheld, something as ridiculous as that, let's take that language and put it to the Second Amendment. And then our lawyer said, "Oh, well, that would work." Perfect. Bill went up, passed 31-29. Republicans yes, Democrats all voted no. So now it's off to the Senate. So that bill is a great bill. We're going to protect your Second Amendment. So I urge you all, contact your senators in the Arizona Senate. Let them know this bill needs to go through. We need to protect that because I don't trust DC. I don't trust that administration. I know. Harass them on the way out. Yeah. The second bill I want to talk about, this one I've been working on for quite some time, and I want to make sure I got it right. And during the Trump administration, he had a big concentration on human trafficking, sex trafficking, child trafficking, molestation, that whole category. And we also know a lot of people on the other side, kind of, the Epsteins and the Clintons, and they all dabbled in that whole industry. So I said, okay, I want to look at our laws. So I looked at our laws and I looked at the sentencing and I said, how do we make a statement across this country? So I changed the laws. So now, if you're caught producing, distributing, child trafficking, sex trafficking, life in prison, no parole, no release. We will be the strongest sentencing in the state of Arizona, or in the country. The state of Arizona will be the strictest anywhere. And that passed 51-1. Wow. Right? That was the number one question, right? So this bill passed, it hit the nation, everywhere. Every news agency picked it up. They were calling, and the question for a lot of people, who is that Warren? Are you nuts? Right? She's obviously, her name is Pamela Powers Hanley. She's a far, far left liberal. Far left. And her excuse was nobody should have mandatory sentence in this country. Nobody should ever experience that. And I turned and I said, let me tell you something. The 5-year-old is trafficked, sex trafficked. If they're molested, if they're gone through that, their life is done. Right? They mentally, psychologically, they will never be the same. I sat in a sting operation a couple weeks ago in Phoenix. We had multiple agencies there. I'm watching how this is going down, and these kids, they'll never be the same. So my thing is this: why do they even deserve to spend another day on this earth without being behind bars. They ruined that life, they need to be in prison for life. And that, right, there's no excuse. No early release, no parole, none of this garbage that exists now. And then someone said, well, they should be given the death penalty. And I agree, right? They should be killed. But then I said, you know what? That's too easy. Right? That's an easy way out.
That's right.
I want them to live every day in prison, remembering what they did, no matter how sick they are. But secondly, I've already been told what happens when these guys go into prison. They find out really quickly who these guys are, who the pedos are, and they're taken care of in a different way, right? And I want them to live that the rest of their life, So that bill off to the Senate, I don't know how you vote that one down, or how the governor didn't sign that one. But those are two bills that I think are extremely important to me that are going through now.
What's that bill number?
The 2889, HB 2889 is that bill number. So those two are huge, and and really quick before we start taking questions and we move on, I just want to tell you guys, the biggest thing with this election when it happened was, my biggest fear was that people like you in this room, right, patriots, people that love this country, they love President Trump, they love freedom, they love our Constitution, they will fight for that. I'm asking you all not to give up. The worst thing that I saw happen was after the election, I was at a PC meeting, and I saw people walk out of the room. The Republican PC meeting. They said, what does it matter anymore that I vote? This is a rigged election. My vote means nothing. And they walked out. That scares me more than anything. Because the moment we stop believing in the process, we will never win an election again. And we all know Kamala will be president within a year or two. We all know this. Right? We know that. If not sooner. Right? We all knew that in the beginning. Yeah. And she's going to turn, and they're going to turn this country exactly what they're doing now. They are selling this country out. The only way we get back is if we continue to fight back. And we get out and vote. We have good people. I know it's hard. You look at the Republican Party, you saw all these people against President Trump, the Bushes, and all these Republicans. You know why they were against him. Because Trump was not the establishment. Right? When we talk about the election integrity and why do you have 4 Republican supervisors that are pushing against this, it's because both sides use this to their advantage. You know that. You know that there's a group of people out there that are not good. They're not good people. But I'm telling you right now, this is the moment for all of us to step up and change and make change. It's time to get good people in office and continue to vote for good people. Do not give up. Do not give up. I'm asking you that from the bottom of my heart. So really quickly, and I'll take your question next, I just want to say to all of you, thank you so much for your continued support. You guys have put me back in office for the second time now. I appreciate that. I'm born and raised here in Mojave County in Lake Havasu, and I love it here. And I will do everything to protect this county, the state, and the city. So thank you guys. I love you all. Thank you. God bless you all.
I moved here to Arizona.
Right.
What about the other states? It can't be just one state.
You're right, and it's funny you say that. When the Second Amendment bill passed, so these and the human trafficking bill passed, like I said, it hit national news all over the place. And the number one message I'm getting is not only from Arizonans. I'm getting messages from people in Wyoming, across the country, in different countries, all over the place: New York, New Jersey, Florida, France, Italy, and they're telling me, "Thank you so much. I'm going to tell my governor. I'm going to tell my legislator what you're doing in Arizona." That's the thing I love the most is when I'm seeing, when we were at CPAC, people were they were loving the fact that we were there. Because they're like, you guys are setting the stage in Arizona. You guys you're in front of everybody. We want to follow you. We want to take your language and do it in our state. So although that's not happening now, I'm telling you right now, they're watching. And other states want to follow us because they know what we're doing. I mean, we're bringing our taxes down. We're helping our veterans. We're stopping human trafficking. We're protecting our Second Amendment, our Constitution. You have good people in office here. And we're going to set the stage, and I'm telling you, once we do it, they will all start to follow. I promise you that. Absolutely.
Any questions for Representative Biasucci?
Yeah.
Just a quick statement. Mark mentioned and made some comments that there was some intimidation. They're kind of putting him through hell.
Sure.
I don't know if that goes for you guys. Just know the people are behind you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're going to get further down on this investigation more and more. And the media and the left is going to go completely apoplectic and come after us like crazy. And they're going to call me all kinds of bad names and say I have a foul mouth and all that stuff, which is like really a surprise around here, right? But I'm gonna ask you, and I'm gonna tell you, they're gonna try to discredit us in any way possible that you can even think of. Please, don't give up on us. Don't believe everything on social media. We know the mainstream media is bogus. Don't give up on us. Give us a call. You want to find out what the truth is. And we have nothing else. All we got's the truth. You know why? We're not gonna lie about anything. It always comes out. But thank you.
Yeah, and it is a good point, because even with the Second Amendment bill that just passed the House that I ran, there's already reports from the left-wing media, AZ Central, and they're already throwing hit pieces at me.
Yeah.
This is unnecessary. He's wasting our time, and that's all BS. That's all BS, because we have to take these measures, or else the Biden administration is going to take our guns, and they made it clear. So he's right. You have to block that noise out. You're going to hear a lot of just bogus misinformation, and they do that because they're just trying to get anybody to believe it, and then that eventually will try to turn the tide and try to get a Democrat
The
in
people
power.
you need are behind you.
I thank you.
Well,
I
and the
appreciate
thing is, see, I know what their playbook is. So I know Leo's bill's coming over, and everybody's all gonna be focusing on the Senate, and I'm gonna be fast tracking it. I already know their playbook. I know what they're gonna do is they're gonna attack it and say, this is not necessary, this is unconstitutional, and I get to go, well, that's the same language that they use in California for the sanctuary cities. Now, wait a minute, are you just talking about states' rights that we have to follow by the federal government? Well, wait a minute. You got marijuana is illegal in the feds, but it's okay in the states. We just make them eat their words. That's the funny part.
That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Now would be a good time probably to tell everybody about right to speak, how they
Yep.
can make their voices heard online.
Yep, absolutely.
And these guys will read your comments, and you can vote.
Yeah, so-
It comes down on bill.
There really quickly, there's a thing called RTS, which is part of the legislature, where people can log in and they can either say they're in favor of a bill or they're against it, they oppose a bill, right? So historically, what has happened is, it was actually the first week I was in the legislature when I got elected 2 years ago. And I'm walking through the halls, and there's these computers that are lined up on the bottom floor. And I see this lady, she's sitting there and she's typing on the computer. Okay, fine, I go into my committee, come back 3 hours later and she's still there, typing away. That's weird. Okay. And then at the end of the day, I go to leave and she's still there. It's like 8 hours later. I'm like, this girl is dedicated. I mean, she's going on every bill. Then I find out she's actually a Democrat who she takes the whole list of people and she puts their names in on all the bills that they oppose. So then when you go into, because what happens is when legislators look at these bills, it tells you who's against and who's in favor. So you'll see like 1,000 against and like 3-4 for a Republican bill. But now I know why, because they're not actually going and it's just one person that's sitting there and doing that.
Some
You
of
know?
the names aren't even.
Yeah, right. They're fake and they're bogus. So what we'll do is, and maybe we can coordinate with you, Luca. I want to get you guys the information on how to sign up and sign in and go in favor. Right? Because we need to have that pushback, because when we're a committee, we can say, this is actually a real person in my county. I know this person.
Yeah.
Right? So what we're going to do, and I know, Danny, we talked about this earlier, what I'll do is we'll coordinate that. So you guys can, because it's important to get your guys' input on these bills and be on the record, because that's official record saying where. So what better than for you to name your name to be behind a Second Amendment bill, right? Or a bill that's protecting our rights, or that's going to be, anti-abortion, whatever the case may be. We're going to make that happen so we can get you guys involved and get you guys' name on the record. Absolutely.
Great idea. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you very much. Tell me if you like it, all right, especially with our members of our temple. I would like to dedicate for all our legislators, city, county, state, who would like to do what you just said, a special page on our website, socialcontactclub.com, that every time there is an update, so our members, they don't need to look between 25 different websites. Boom. I just copy and paste what you send us. You're the messenger. I'm just, amplifying your message. So it's going to be socialcontactclub.com. Even if you are not a member, you can at least go there. You will see pretty soon. Give me a couple of days. I will put a special page for our evangelists of freedom. That's what I am. Okay? So they will share the message how they're fighting this evil spirit somewhere spread around this federal or state, because it's everywhere. It's not just federal. Our city, we have people that broke the law, and it's not my opinion. There was an attorney general legal opinion. If the city ordinance is good for me, that means, if I do something wrong, I'm going to get fined or even fined a misdemeanor. The mayor is supposed to be at the same level. She's not a queen, you know? And you know, we will talk about that later. I'm not gonna be the person to talk. Today is not the type of, but you will see. The point is, we need to have a way to support and amplify this message at every level, not just at federal level, especially at state, county, and city. Now, we're getting there, getting better and better. Now we have a great lady. Years ago, how many years ago? 10 years ago, I guess, maybe. 10 years ago. No, I met her 10 years ago, I guess, at least. You know, I was kind of a new in the Republican Party, and, you know, I always wanted to do the right thing. Doesn't mean that is always the right thing, but for my heart, I thought it was the right thing. When I see something that some of these elected people that somehow disregard our basic rights, I wanted to speak up. And, you know, sometimes I'm a little vocal, sometimes I can be a little rude, but I'm honest. I'm honest. And maybe I'm wrong sometimes. And I say, when I'm wrong, I say, I'm wrong. And I say, so that was wrong with you a few years ago. And I apologize, I move on. But, you know, with that, I think I was right. And there was a former, you know, supervisor, I don't mention his name, he's retired, he's gone. But the point is, she was a great lady in the Republican Party, we met, and, you know, started to know each other. She knew I wasn't completely crazy. Anyway, finally, she jumped on it, and she ran for supervisor. And I was very happy, because we made incredible changes. Our struggle wasn't just, you know, some idea there. Yeah, we tried to recall the supervisor. It didn't work out, but if you want the signature, but guess what? She went in, and there, with another great supervisor at the time, Judge Moss, great changes in Multnomah County happened, and made this place more and more worth living in and be here. So I want to give a great, great applause, and my honor to have with us tonight, Multnomah County Supervisor Hildy Andrews. Thank you.
Thanks, Luca. You know, I wanted to expound a little bit on what Luca just said and what the guys were saying earlier about how you all have to get involved. You know, I say this, and I say this to a lot of people, anyone who basically listens to me. I'm where I am at my seat on that dais because of you, Jim Canellis, Mervyn Pitchfork Freed. Those guys stood up to power. They saw what was going on in the county, and even before I was even involved, I learned what was going on, because I was really looking down there at the state, you know, everything you think is big, and people are like, no, look at the county, look what's going on, and think bad things are happening at the county, and you know, and these are people who are my friends. This gentleman that he won't mention the name, you know, he was my friend, but when I looked at what they were doing, the votes, what was going on in the county, I said, no, this has got to change, you know, and with the help of people like you, and, you know, we didn't have a call to public, and now we do, and now people like Chris Rodarty, where is she? Oh, I'm looking over here, you know, can come up and have her 3 minutes in front of her elected officials on the record. That wouldn't happen if it wasn't for all the people who went out on a limb. Some got arrested. Some lost their jobs so that we could have a county that we can be proud of. And I think we have done a lot. You know, when we did the Second Amendment Sanctuary County.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is that originated in California, in Needles, California. There was a new board, you know, when people are new on a new city council, when people are new, you know, they're all full of piss and vinegar and they want to get going. And this guy, I read in the paper that Needle, California, of all places, is doing the Second Amendment Sanctuary City. And I'm like, wow, that is cool. And I read about it. And then I went there and I supported them, right? And I said, you know what, we're going to do that too. And other supervisors from other counties called me crazy. They called me up and said, we hear you doing that. We immediately got support from Paul Gosar, our congressman, of course. And other supervisors called me up and saying, we hear you doing something crazy. I'm like, well, what's so crazy about it? We're just saying that we're going to abide by the Constitution. What is crazy about that? And they're like, yeah, well, maybe. And so after we did it, several other counties did it. And here we are at the state. And I'm so proud. And, you know, if you're really watching what other states do, I'm always sending them things, you know, this state did this. You should. States are waking up because they're seeing that we got to play by what the Democrats do. They use the courts, they use the legislatures. We have got to, I said this at our PC meeting. This is our problem. We're on a battlefield. The Democrats we show up with our Bibles and constitutions and we're waving them and we're speaking eloquently and debating. They show up with their corrupt judges, lawyers, and brass knuckles. And as long as we play like that, we're gonna lose. We have to play on their battlefield, and we can do it without compromising our principles. And because we are smarter, that's what tells me we are smarter, and the only way they can achieve power is to cheat. And that's what they do, and we can't let them. And so people like you in rooms like this, I believe, in churches like this, across the country, we have to. It's like we're the resistance. So remember how they kept saying it's the resistance? We are the true resistance because they want to shut us up. We never wanted to shut them up. How can you be a resistance when we're letting you talk everywhere? They want to shut us up. Please don't let them. Don't give up. I did too, you know, I had that 5 stages of grief after the election, right? I went through depression and bargaining and getting angry. And now I'm like, and I was ready to walk away, honestly. It's like, what's the use? I was there. But then I woke up, you know, and then I got mad and said, no, not while I've got blood in my body. So I thank you for doing
thank
this
you.
today. And I came here to hear Sheriff Mack, so.
Any questions? for
Any
Supervisor?
questions?
I just want to say, we need to be constitutionally correct instead of politically correct.
You got that.
David.
This county, stay a constitutional county?
What do you
Is
mean?
it, well, do you vote on it every year, or is it?
Oh, you mean the Second Amendment? Sanctuary state, the county, you
Either
mean?
one, yeah.
Either one.
Is this a constitutional county?
Oh, yeah, well, it is. I mean, the resolution we passed it wasn't the original 1776. And again, there are some legal things. And if we had more time, and maybe we'll revisit it. I know some people are a little angry about it. But the sanctuary, they're just resolutions. They really are not legally binding. But like what Leo was saying, what it says is if a law comes to town, the federal government or the state government puts down a law that is against the Constitution, when it comes to Second Amendment, we will not expend any resources, employees. We won't spend any money to enforce it. Now there's a county somewhere in the Midwest that says they're going to arrest the federal agents, which we're looking into it. But we have a slim majority. Yeah, so we got a slim majority at the state, but they're doing an awesome job. I got to say, we work together. And it was not always like that before this board.
Yeah.
We were really at each other's throats. We were not working together. We have to work together as Republicans, as constitutionalists, just as members of this country. We've got to work together. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Now listen, this is truly a beautiful night for me. Maybe I didn't tell you, but I see people I haven't seen in years. By the way, she mentioned some names, but I don't want to forget, I have so many other names I would like to remember to myself and to others at that time. They really did their part, men and women. I mean, I just see right now my friend Randy Cohn, my neighbor with his lady and his family. They were there doing, putting their money out, putting their time out, collecting signatures in the heat of the sun. Mother County is a big county. It's not like in the city. Speaking about city, we have a lady here tonight that she's also my business partner. And she did an incredible job. I'm very proud of her. With a handful of mostly ladies. I'll tell you, these women, I'm proud of them. They were on the street, on the parking lot of Walmart collecting signatures. Now, you may agree or not with the recall, that's okay, but this is our right to do it. And the fact that people put their time, their money, their health, they're not exactly 20 years old. This lady, they have, 30 maybe, 30 years old. Okay. I want to say thank you, Bridget Langston, for the incredible job making the recall. Till the end. And this recall, I don't know about the history of Kingman much, but I think that was the one that few, maybe the only recall was successful, at least the last 30, 40 years. I was Googling it up. I don't know anyone. Just a great message that we are sending out to everyone. Regular people can make the difference. That's the bottom line. It takes a little effort. It takes a little love. It takes a little help. Sometimes you get tired at night, but guess what? You can do it. We can do it. Thank you very much. Now, Cheryl, Richard, Mark, there are no other words to say. Come here, Cheryl, please. That's it, just 3 words? Just Sheriff Richard Mack?
That's it. That's it. Oh, yeah, that's, oh, no, you're here. Come here, my friend. Thank you.
That's fine.
There we go. Thank you.
All right. I pass it out to each of you, a $400,000 document. Be very careful with it. You must give it back to me or pay for it. I hope you all spill your water on it. Or your coffee. But I'm telling you the truth. You're getting a $400,000 document. Maybe any of you who've ever been to the Supreme Court can tell us how much it costs to do that. I'm giving you a copy of that case that I did when I was a naive and ignorant sheriff right here in Arizona. And Hildy, were you around then? Where were you?
Wasn't even Arizona.
You weren't born yet? I'm not that much older than you. Okay, well, good. I'm really glad to be here, and I'm really glad I heard from some of our legislators. And I criticize legislators a lot, but you guys, my hat's off to you. Thank you. Thank you very much for what you've done. Hildy, you too. Yeah, thank you. And isn't it really sad that we have to pass laws that are already in the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights? And you guys, real quickly, do you know where the Bill of Rights, you don't even know where that came from? It really was generated from, and do I need this? Do I need, back of the back? Do I need this? What? Because I'm going to get rid of it. Because sometimes I feel like Sundance in the Butch Cassidy Sundance Kid. I got to be able to move. So, okay, now I'm gonna come down because I'm tall and you can still see me, right?
Yes.
Can you see the hat? That's the main thing. All right, good. So everybody got your $400,000 document? Okay, be careful. Okay, and you got yours over here? Okay, good. So the Bill of Rights, I think this deserves some repeating. First of all, the Constitution was written, and then 2 years later, some of the more radical founding fathers came to Madison and said, we made a little mistake. Madison was offended. He said, we prayed about this. We all felt good about it. The Constitution's perfect. It was like the most perfect thing. We compromised. We didn't have any press there. We kicked them out. We just hammered this out as brothers, and we loved each other, and we argued, and we blood, sweat, and tears, and all. And then John Hancock said, it doesn't have a Declaration of Rights. It doesn't have a Bill of Rights. Madison completely withdrew, and he said, you're right, I'm sorry, we've got to go back. And they did. And you know where that was generated from? The Magna Carta. The Magna Carta. It's when the people get together. Magna Carta was barons who did it, basically, but it's we the people. And they came back together and they said, oh my gosh. So they all had a meeting about, let's list all the rights that government can never touch. How many would we come up with? Oh my goodness. I could think of one. I think IRS, never again. So they came up with 189. And then they dwindled them down. Of course, there was a lot of duplicity and, bleed over. And they dwindled them down to 12. And then the states ratified 10. Let's not forget while we're doing this, who formed the federal government? The states. Now, in school, I would let the kids give me 3 different names. The founding fathers, the states, or we the people. But really, technically, it was the states. And I also like in the Declaration of Independence where it talks about, towards the end, these colonies are and have right to be free and independent states. It didn't say the United States of America. It said these colonies are free and independent states. And that's why I really love these guys exercising that principle. Thank you so much for that. But I'm telling you also, the Bill of Rights is a list of rights government cannot touch. almost 20,000 gun control laws in America. You think we're having just a little bit too much touchy on the Second Amendment? It's all of them though now, since the pandemic. Who cares about freedom of religion? We've got to protect you from the pandemic. I wonder when they're going to protect me from them. When is it that the Bill of Rights and the principles of liberty are ever going to be sacred to these people?
Never.
And they even swear an oath to it. And they're required by law to swear that oath. All of you do that, right? Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution requires you to take that oath. You're bound by the supreme law to take it, and then you're bound by sacred oath to keep it. Man, I sure hope the sheriff start investigating people for perjury, if nothing else. A lot of people, oh, we gotta hang them for treason. Maybe, but I know for a fact that's perjury. And boy, I'd sure like to see him get investigated for it.
Yeah.
And we need to start pushing back on these corrupt politicians. Well, because, you know, the real pandemic, don't you? It isn't the coronavirus.
Propaganda.
It's government corruption.
Right.
It's absolute, it's so ubiquitous and profound and swampy that they don't even see it anymore. In fact, do you ever hear the word tyranny anymore? Nobody ever says the tyranny. What we have talked, boy, read the Declaration of Independence. You can see despotism, you can see tyranny. We don't talk about it, we don't teach it, because they don't want anybody to know that word. Because they don't want to be exposed. And it's super sad. But the Bill of Rights was specifically for a list what government cannot touch. Well, you go through those, how many principles are there in the Bill of Rights? There's about 28. It's not 10. Now, the Second Amendment's 1, Third Amendment's 1, Fourth is about 4, Fifth is about 4 or 5, the Sixth is about 7 or 8, and the Eighth is maybe 2 or 3, depending on how you count no cruel and unusual punishment. So it's cruel one, and unusual is another one, or excessive fines or bail, so fines or money. So that's probably 3 in the Eighth Amendment. There's only 1 in the 7th, really. And there's 1 in the 9th. And you don't really know what the 9th says. The 9th says, just because a right is not mentioned in the Constitution doesn't mean that you don't have it. Okay, and I always compare it to this. Does the Constitution say that any of you have a right to be a father or a mother? Nowhere in the Constitution does that even mention, even briefly. Not at all. Do you have a right to be a father and mother? Yeah, well, see, there was a problem. Well, it's not mentioned in the Constitution, you don't have it. No. So all rights not mentioned does not disparage you from having the ones that you already know that you have and are retained by the people. And then
Everybody created.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And these were the natural rights that we were all born with, that they listed in there that, okay, specifically the government couldn't violate. Unless, got to get that exemption clause in there, right? the old exemption clause and a lot of politicians would say, well, it's what's the word I'm looking for?
Silent.
It's implied. It's implied that if there's an emergency or a pandemic or a horrible virus going around, then the Constitution does not apply anymore.
Right.
You see, you're going to trust those crooks with that? And Jefferson said, never trust them, but bind them down by the chains of the Constitution. Anybody bound by the Constitution these days? The chains of the Constitution? They could care less that they took the oath or that the Constitution exists. And their agenda now is the important thing. And I just want to ask them all, where does liberty line up in any of this? It doesn't. Because they will do whatever they want to us. And it's comparable to the Declaratory Act. And you know, right after the colonists were really making a big stink to the Parliament and King George III, they came up with all this stuff, and said, okay, we're gonna repeal. So England finally said, we're gonna repeal the Stamp Act. And the communists would go, whoa. Boy, calling the senators and the legislators really paid off this time. We're getting something. And then the next day, a few days, maybe the same day, they said, but we're passing the Declaratory Act. And that means we can do anything to you that we want to. And Thomas Paine in The American Crisis actually wrote about this. And he said, if being bound in such a manner is not slavery, then there is not slavery upon earth. Because if your politicians can say anything to you and demand anything from you, and they can legislate anything they want to you and you and you, how is that not slavery?
It is.
And I finally found something from Vice President Harris that I agreed with her. And I said, this is a miracle. In fact, I want to talk about miracles tonight. This is an absolute miracle because I cannot stand the lady. She's probably the epitome of corruption. And well, probably she is. And she said this, and I don't know what prompted her to say such a thing and who she was talking to. But she said, forcing someone against their will is slavery.
Yeah.
What?
You get a recording of it?
Oh, it's out there. He heard it too. Yeah, it was put on some news agency. I don't think any of CNN. They don't want to expose that. Well, what was she having a bad hair day or something? No. Kamala, did you know what you just said? The right wing of America says the same thing. Thomas Paine said the same thing. Kamala, you better retract that one right away. You don't want to be that foundational and fundamental. So, I did something crazy when I was sheriff here, and that's all I ever wanted to be. It was my favorite job. It was a dream come true to be the sheriff in my hometown. You guys, you can't imagine what a dream come true that was for me. And you want to talk about a miracle? I should have never been sheriff. I had no business being sheriff. I was an experienced law officer, but I never got any of that experience in Arizona. I never worked in law enforcement in my hometown or in my county, ever. In fact, the only thing I ever, my wife and I first got married, I worked for you true Arizonans, I worked for A.J. Bayless Supermarkets.
Oh, yeah.
Used to be the biggest food store chain in Arizona. Now it's got. But I loved A.J. Bayless, and I was assistant manager. I was the third manager. And I thought, well, I might just do this. And then, had a bad dream one night and went back to college. And so I hadn't even lived here for 12 years. And I moved back to town. I drop everything. I leave Provo Police Department where I spent 12 years, 11 years. And that's where I got to school at BYU. And I just pick up and just crazy. My wife's parents, especially her mother, oh my goodness. And they said that I had to come home and run for sheriff, or we were going to get a corrupt sheriff. And I said, you guys are crazy. I'm not leaving here. We're happy. And my wife agreed with me. When you get your wife to agree that her parents are crazy, you really achieved something. And so neither one of us wanted to do it. And we weren't going to do it. And we did a list of all the pros and cons. We sent it to her mom. Didn't matter. I mean, there's like 25 reasons why we couldn't do it. And only 2 that were maybe okay. And that's, it'd be fun to be sheriff there. And both grandparents lived there. We wanted our kids to be close to the grandparents. That was it. All the reasons not to were like overwhelming. And so good. I told my wife, her name's Dawn. I said, Dawn, even your parents are going to understand this because it's so obvious we can't do it. And after we made that list, one day I was a detective at the time, and I had some parade or something working. I was in uniform. And I came home afterwards, and I looked at my wife, and she looked at me. And I said, are we thinking the same thing? And she goes, you're never going to wear that uniform again. And I said, that's exactly what I was thinking. And 2 weeks later, we moved to Stafford, and I ran for sheriff. And I'm telling you folks, it was a very difficult election. And I won the primary by 111 votes. And then I beat the incumbent quite heavily. You want to hear another miracle? And don't throw anything at me, okay? No, I know you, man, you'll throw something at me. I was a registered Democrat.
Oh, gonna throw something at
So I was probably the most conservative Democrat in the history of our country. But my views have never changed, but Safford, Graham County was 6-1 Democrat. And when I was growing up, it was even much more than that. Republicans never ran for anything. There wasn't even really a Republican Party there. Everything was decided in the primaries. It was a Democrat Party. And so I analyzed it very carefully, and I had to do it as a Democrat. And oddly enough, it was the first Republican sheriff that I beat. Yeah, but I knew I could beat him. He only won because the Democrat there was not qualified. Nobody knew it. No qualified Democrat ran against him. So he ran and he got it. He stayed in 2 terms, and then I stayed in 2 terms as a Democrat. Usually it's a Democrat, and so I don't care about the party politics, and I did. So I sued. So I as a Democrat, I sued the top Democrat in the country, and that was Bill Clinton. So it's just crazy. The whole thing was crazy. I admit it, but I didn't think of it, and it wasn't my idea. None of it. And then I got to tell you this. I'm gonna just tell you real briefly some of the miracles that led to this whole thing. And when I was in Phoenix at a Sheriff's Association meeting, this is the January 21st, 1994, and 13 sheriffs out of the 15 were at the meeting. And there's 3 agents of the DHF, and they handed us a 25-page document that all the sheriffs in the entire nation got this document, and it said what we had to do. It gave us that's what they called it. This is your marching orders from Congress as to what you have to do to comply with the Brady Bill. A gun control law. And now we're going to have to enforce it. And the first time in American history that they ever said or did this. If you don't do it and you don't do what we say, we're going to arrest you. If you don't comply, we will arrest you. And so, boy, I tell you what, the sheriffs of Arizona, and it wasn't me, all those sheriffs in that room were cussing up a storm, both Democrat and Republican alike. And I was the youngest sheriff in the state at the time, and I'm kind of listening to all these elder statesmen, and I'm going, hey, they totally convinced me. There's no way we're going to do this. Then at the end of the day, the President's Association went around the table and asked everybody what they wanted to do about the Brady Bill. Every single one of them acquiesced. There's nothing you can do about it. And about 6 of them said, you can't fight City Hall. Oh, I hate that. And so I told them, I said, and it seemed like I was last. I don't know if I was, but anyway, I told them all that I wasn't going to do it. I said, I'm not doing it. You guys totally convinced me. All this rhetoric you guys were spewing out and all the cussing, you totally convinced me. We shouldn't be doing this. And you know that the sheriffs of Arizona could have stopped it for Arizona? Just send a letter back to Washington and say, we're not doing this in Arizona, come and arrest us. Wouldn't you love to have seen that?
Yeah.
That would have been fun. And so, yeah, I want to see him arrest Joe Arpaio in Maricopa. But, okay, so when I came home from that meeting and I told my wife that I was going to sue the federal government, I didn't know at the time I was, but by the time I had 2.5 hours to drive home, and by the time I got home, I'm going, oh my gosh. So as soon as I stopped the car, it hit me. Oh, now we know what you're going to do. You're going to sue the federal government. It's the Clintons! And I go, ha. And I'm almost pointing the finger at God and kind of laughing and go, I'm not going to have to do it because there's no way the pretty little blonde girl is going to go along with this. And lo and behold, I told her what I was going to do, and she says, I don't understand anything you're saying. And I tried to explain it better, but I was too excited. I know I didn't do a good job. And she goes, I don't understand this. but I understand you. And she goes, serious look, she said, maybe now we know why you were supposed to be sheriff. And it really touched me that she said that. My mom said it the very next day when I told her. She was like, I think we know the miracle, why you were supposed to be sheriff. And so I tried to find a lawyer down on Main Street, a friend of mine, to tell me what to do to go sue the Clinton administration. He was just dead set against it. He said, oh, come on, sheriff. He didn't call me sheriff, he called me the name that I grew up with there in the hometown. I don't even like to say it. Okay, I'll say it. My name was Richie Mack. Richie, okay? And that's, if you ever heard somebody come and call me Richie, you know that they knew me. They probably grew up with me, went to high school with me, sat in high school with me. And so he goes, Richie, he said, you ought to go golfing or something. Did you run this past your wife? You know, and I said, yeah, she endorsed it. And believe me, ladies, if she hadn't, I would never have done it. You know, I would not have done it. She made the decision to do it. And I can't say, I even asked her today. I said, today, if I did that, you would say, hell no. You know? What happened to you that day? Where were you? You know? And so it was really a miracle. We're talking about a small town sheriff from southeast Arizona, 45,000 people, and the fourth smallest county in the state. And I sued the Clinton administration. And I lived to tell about it. And so how that happened too is that my undersheriff was a lifetime member of the NRA. He came to my office after I talked to that attorney. And I just remembered Mike always talking about being a member of the NRA. I never was. I have been since then, but I really go for gun owners of America better, you know, than the NRA. But anyway, regardless, I said, does the NRA have a phone number you can call and get advice? And he said, there's a toll-free number on my car. And so I called the number, and I got passed around. Finally, I ended up in the office of Richard Gardner. And Gardner is a lawyer for the NRA. And I told him who I was and what I wanted to do, and the next line changed my life forever. He goes, Sheriff, we've already been preparing the paperwork on this case. And we've been praying that you would call. But I said, you guys don't even know me, I'm not even a member. He goes, we need a sheriff, and you're the first one to call. I said, wow, okay. They're gonna pay for everything. They're gonna provide all the attorneys. And I said, well, we're gonna finally prove that the Second Amendment really means what it says and blah, blah, blah. He goes, we're not even suing on the Second Amendment. I go, you're the NRA, that's what we do. He goes, you have no standing on the Second Amendment. Law enforcement is exempt from the Brady Deal. So you have no damage, yes, you have no standing. I said, so what paperwork are you preparing? He said, a 10th Amendment challenge. The federal government has no jurisdictional authority to tell you to do anything. And I put a big old smile on. I said, even better. Because that's what I said. I told the agents at the meeting. I said, you guys know you can't. That's 500 laws. I don't work for you. You can't hire me. You can't fire me. You don't pay my salary.